I think I'm getting a reading somewhere. Dude, what are you doing? Oh, I'm trying to detect the presence of this ghost that's trying to haunt this mansion. And a Zoom microphone is supposed to help you with that? You can watch any ghost or paranormal investigation show. They're all the same. Sure, they may not use a simple Zoom microphone to detect ghosts. They may have these magnetic field detectors or ultrasonic sensors or temperature sensors. And the show will do its best to try and hype up that little audio that it got or that little temperature signal that it got to try and make it look like that. That right there is what makes the entire episode. I'm sure if I asked most of you if you believed in ghosts, you'd probably say no. But to prove this is a surprisingly hard question to answer. In fact, I'd say it's impossible to prove it. And the answer might be more relevant for your other beliefs too. Let's talk about why in this video. My name's Pranav, you're watching Science is Dope. Let's begin. Let's say I hear about a haunted mansion and I decide to go investigate. When I reach the mansion, sure, it looks spooky as hell. There's no electricity and it's super dark. So I whip out my flashlight and decide to go explore. I look around every part of the mansion and there's nothing out of the ordinary. When I finish my search, can I conclude that ghosts don't exist? Or that this particular ghost in the mansion does not exist? This mansion isn't haunted? The answer is simply no, I can't. The ghost could have been there while I was looking, always moving to a different part of the mansion where I wasn't looking. Or maybe I didn't have the right instruments with me to detect the ghost. There are many arguments that can be made as to why I didn't see the ghost. Maybe I was too skeptical and the ghost tries to stay away from skeptics. Or maybe its powers of haunting become weak in the presence of skeptics. Whatever it may be, I cannot conclude that the ghost does not exist. All I can say is that I never saw the ghost. These kinds of experiments are untestable. Let's talk about it. It was long back in this video that I spoke about something. An invisible dragon that you can't detect. Ghosts are just like that. The Bigfoot or Yeti is just like that. Unicorns are just like that. Nobody has ever seen a single piece of evidence of having detected their existence. Because one single piece of undeniable evidence is all you need to prove that they exist. But unfortunately, there's no such evidence that you can detect to prove that they don't exist. You can prove that idea to be true, but you can't prove it to be false. This is called unfalsifiability. When an idea is unfalsifiable, it's untestable. I encourage you to watch that video to learn more about this. But about ghosts specifically, there's a little more. We fall prey to a number of biases to make us think that they do exist. The first is the bias to preserve our own lives. We may run away from a potential danger even if there is no actual danger. We evolve with this sort of bias as a core trait. In fact, that's what made all our ancestors really good survivors. They avoided potential danger. And this trait is alive and well within you because you're descended from them. And so ghosts, whether they're real or not, you have a tendency to think that they are real. You run away from any spooky sound or any spooky looking shadow that may just have been some inanimate object or anything that scares you. So when you and I have this trait, it's hard not to be scared of ghosts. Not just ghosts, even vampires or demons or rakshasas or yakshis. We imagine them with sharp teeth, canines and sharp claws. Why? Because these are features of predators and we instinctively avoid them. They strike fear within us, and this is the same fear that makes us imagine these supernatural beings with these same features. Another thing is that nearly every culture in the world has some concept of souls, something within the body that survives death and goes to heaven or hell or maybe start another life. In fact, this is what most religions promise. And so it's possible within this context that a soul or a spirit may not find its way to heaven and may remain here on earth with some unfinished business, or maybe haunting some mansion. And so most cultures make this existence of ghosts possible. They create that context. Since most of us are from such cultures already, that makes us primed to believe in ghosts. And then there's TV and horror movies and video games and all such stuff that contain all these beings that reinforce these ideas in our minds. We hear of ghost stories from our friends, which may not even be true, or which may be exaggerated to an extent where the ghost seems real. And we have a tendency to trust the story, to believe the story because it's coming from someone that we trust. Basically, we are primed by so many things that it's hard to imagine that they're not real. And this is not to mention any psychological condition that a person may have. Someone could just hallucinate a presence, a ghost, or maybe just a sound or a voice. That's enough. Someone could exhibit multiple personality disorder, and someone else could interpret this as possession by ghost, by a spirit, by a soul. I remember this. A friend of mine once told me about how she once experienced this episode of sleep paralysis. She was awake from her sleep but unable to move for a few moments. And she began to panic. And while that was happening, she felt a hand come up over her body and try to strangle her. But she was rational enough to realize later that she imagined the whole thing. See, our brains may be amazing, but they have a tendency to fill these gaps in things we don't understand. The gaps in our knowledge, like why we can't move, with our own imagination of things we've read about or heard about before. Like a spooky hand that's holding us down and trying to strangle us. Whatever the case may be, the idea of ghosts remains untestable. As long as it remains something vague like an entity that's trying to haunt a mansion, something that's no longer alive and could be anywhere in the mansion, making it impossible to detect. Like, where are you gonna look? Now, even given all this, a lot of people still don't believe in ghosts, simply because their past experience tells them there's no such thing. But there is one condition under which you can prove 100% that ghost does not exist. The moment you make this ghost be something specific or do something specific, like say at 3 p.m. every day, the ghost will be at this exact spot. Now you make the ghost testable. And the testing will tell you exactly whether or not that ghost exists. And you'll never hear a testable story of a ghost. Just like you'll never hear a testable story of something else. See, I found the concept of God and the concept of ghosts to be extremely similar because the evidence for both is one and the same. Zero, zilch, non-existent. But still people believe in God even if they don't believe in ghosts. Why? Now, I have to make a disclaimer in every one of these kinds of videos that I make. This video or any video that I make is not meant to offend anyone's beliefs. It's simply meant to make you think. But I'm sure a lot of viewers would have clicked away from this video by now. They're gonna miss the main point of the video. God has a powerful weapon in his arsenal. Something no ghost could ever have. Childhood indoctrination. For a lot of us, right from our childhood, our models of reality are filled with stories of God, whichever part of the world you're coming from. And it's not because our parents were lying to us, they were probably telling us what they thought was true, things they probably heard in their childhood. And these stories become a huge part of our culture. The way we pray and our festivals, etc. They become an inseparable part of our lives. Having grown with these things as huge parts of their lives, a lot of people grow very emotionally attached to their religion. This is particularly the case with Islam, but other religions aren't far behind. And having been a Hindu at one point, I know this exploits another bias that we are all prone to, tribalism. The bias to favor our own tribe or our own group, or in this case, our own religion. Ghosts have none of this working for them, even if both concepts are equally untestable and equally lacking in evidence. Another thing that religion does to preserve itself is that it actively discourages critical thinking. It actively tells people not to ask questions. Some religions pretend to be very probing and very questioning, but only within a limited set of questions. But the moment you step outside that limited set, you'll see some true colors. Like some Hindus will tell you that Hinduism is all about questioning stuff. But the moment you ask them, is any of this true? Or how do you know it's true? Or why do you practice the caste system, etc.? You'll see them retreat into that same echo chamber that they came from. Another thing that makes it convenient for people not to believe in ghosts is not believing in ghosts has no consequence. You can actually just declare that and nobody will care. But you say that you don't believe in God and you will probably invoke the wrath of your family. You may even be treated as an outcast from your community. Because of this, there are many closeted atheists. People who don't believe in God but don't say anything publicly about it. And just like ghosts, it's impossible to prove that God does not exist. In fact, many theists use this point to challenge atheists. But it remains an unfalsifiable idea, just like ghosts. If you're an atheist and you face such a question, just tell them, just because you can't prove that something does not exist, that doesn't mean it does. God is an untestable idea, but that untestability also depends upon how specific your definition of God is. If it's specific enough, it may be testable, or maybe it's even logically impossible. But most definitions are not that specific. They're vague enough to make them untestable. If there's any specificity, it may not go beyond a face or a name or a lore or a story behind it. Never more than anything like that. And how do you test that? Dude, why do you care about testing so much? Do you care about the truth? Not really. Then you are adopted. Now, if you ask me, do you believe in God? I'd say no. That makes me an atheist. Oh, and by the way, atheism or being an atheist has nothing to do with how smart you are, with your intelligence. Atheists are not smarter than theists. Individual people may be smarter than other people, but being an atheist or a theist does not determine that. It just says something about what I believe. Atheism has nothing to do with intelligence. When I say I'm an atheist, I'm very careful about what I say to follow-up questions. I never say that gods don't exist. I always say that I don't believe that a god or gods exist. There's a difference between the two. The first is a knowledge claim for which I have to provide evidence. The second is only a belief claim. And I believe so because I don't see any convincing evidence or reason to believe otherwise. I can extend that further. I don't believe in anything supernatural simply because I've never seen any convincing evidence to make me believe otherwise. Hey folks, in my last video I spoke about how scienceisdope was going through a bit of a financial crisis and so many of you stepped up to help. I honestly thought I wouldn't get a lot of help considering how badly that video performed. But no, it was the highest earning video in a long time, almost doubling my channel revenue. And many of you helped through UPI and Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you to everyone who did. I'm so touched by the fact that so many of you find enough value in my content to support it with your hard-earned money. I'm so inspired to put out regular content now. I'm making a commitment to put out at least one video every single week. But if that doesn't happen, and I know this because of past experience, if I don't put out a video in a week or I take longer than a week to put out a video, that's because it took me a lot more research or effort for that particular video. So you can bet a delay means a really good video is going to come. And I know lately the topics on this channel have not been quite traction drawing. Maybe that's not interesting enough for a lot of people to watch. And I've been doing a lot of thinking on that and a lot of analysis on past really well performing videos. And based on all this, I've decided to choose certain particular topics that I think you guys will really like. The other thing I wanted to say was that many of you showed your support through YouTube Thanks and Buy Me Coffee and all that, which are all one time support options, which is great. Any support truly does help. But if you're willing to show your commitment through that support, through Patreon or YouTube memberships, something that will give me a regular revenue, I'm gonna use that to build a team that's hopefully gonna help me make or release these videos more often, maybe even twice a week. And for you also, it'll be more bang for your buck, if you know what I mean. But again, remember that you are under no obligation to financially support me. My videos will always remain free here on YouTube. Support me only if you can afford to. Otherwise, just share my videos. And those who do support me on Patreon or YouTube memberships will get special perks. So make sure you do check that out if you want to choose those options. I'd like to thank my highest tier supporters on Patreon and YouTube. And also, if you did like this video, here's another video on how religions brainwash you and what you can do about it. And here's an entire playlist on topics to improve your critical thinking. I'll see you on the next one. Till then, remember, science is dope.